podcast is a member of WGPRN, WildGamesProductions.com.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mike, and we don't have Mark this week, unfortunately, but I did want to give you listeners a quick episode to keep up the podcast momentum. So a few of you might have been wondering where Vince is, and he's actually been promoted to Benevolent Tyrant of the Wild Games Productions Radio Network, or maybe it was more like a coup. But he's gone more into the executive producer capacity of the show, but you will see him in some old World of Darkness segments to come. And if you're wondering who I am, well, I'm Lost Heretic on the WGPRN forums and on the White Wolf forums as well. And I'm a new host. You might remember my work talking about Vampire the Eternal Struggle, and I've also done a couple episodes regarding Masquerade and Requiem. So, as you'll probably figure out, I'm a big fan of Vampire the Masquerade, and I like both Old and New World of Darkness. I also like Hunter the Reckoning. And I'm also very impressed by Promethean the Created, although I haven't been able to run that game yet. I also play quite a bit of Vampire the Eternal Struggle. I just played in a tournament over the weekend and did absolutely terrible. Got crushed, but that's a tale for a different time. So some recent updates to Darker Days Radio. We just released a Season 1 episode guide, which tells you what's in each episode, and you can also go and download a torrent with all like 32 episodes from legit torrents, and you can get all the episodes that way. We also just had Darker Days Video Episode 1 released, and that's a little tutorial on how to fix the binding of your revised era hardcover books, so like Vampire the Masquerade Revised or Mummy the Resurrection, any of those. And a quick update for the Wild Games Productions Radio Network is Mirage Arcana. They just released their new blog, which is pretty cool. And they also had a recent episode, episode 19, where Adrian interviews T-Win Woodruff. And this is pretty funny because Mark wants to have a discussion of her book, Gypsies, World of Darkness Gypsies, in the next full episode. So it's pretty funny to see that they interviewed the author and discussed that book a bit. So it's very interesting, and you should check it out. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to jump into a review of World of Darkness Midnight Roads.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast for this special announcement.
If you like role-playing games, check out swingandamiss.net where...
Damon, did you do your laundry?
Oh god, this is not happening. Yes, I did. Don't come in.
What, you playing with yourself in there?
No, I'm trying to record a promo.
A porno? Not in my home, young man.
No, a promo, an ad for my podcast.
What's a podcast?
It's a recording of our actual plays and gaming advice for people to download and listen to.
Is that on the internet?
Yes, Ma. Swingandamiss.net is a place for players and game masters to talk to each other across several gaming genres.
Okay, well don't forget to take out the trash and find a nice girl.
Swingandamiss.net. Don't let your mother catch you playing with yourself here.
Alright, and we're back. If you guys haven't checked out Swing and a Miss, they've got a pretty cool actual play for Vampire the Masquerade, if you're interested in listening to that kind of stuff. I just checked it out the other day, and it's pretty good. It was interesting to see someone else's take on the World of Darkness and how they like to run Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles. So, I wanted to talk about Midnight Roads. Just to give a little background on this, I've been interested in this sourcebook for a while. It's her New World of Darkness, and it was released in 2008. And I couldn't really find many reviews on the internet. Seems like I'm not sure if there wasn't much interest in it, or if people just didn't have too much to say after they read it. So I decided to pick up a copy and give a little review about it once I finished it. So the idea of Midnight Roads is pretty simple. It gives storytellers options for chronicles on the road, from like advice to story hooks. The supplement was actually developed by Matt McFarland, who's a friend of the show, and it's 128 pages long, and it doesn't have an index, but that's not too necessary for this book. One thing I did notice, unfortunately, is that the paper was pretty cheap and almost like gossamer. It's not the nice glossy stock that you find in New World of Darkness core books or maybe the old revised era hardcovers. But luckily, the binding's pretty tight, so you don't have to worry about it falling apart. So it's broken up into 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is basically an overview. The author makes it pretty clear that the source book covers the history and present state of the American transportation system, and the main focus is the road, but there is some discussion of trains and stuff like that. And there's some pretty interesting information on trucking, hitchhiking, and places associated with highway travel. My favorite short section in here was discussing campgrounds. While the history wasn't too informative, the 3 paragraphs with supernatural story hooks were pure gold. I definitely like to use all 3 of those in a one-shot or something, because I think you get a lot of mileage out of them. If you're curious, one story hook is about zombies coming into the campground and chasing people into the woods. Another one is you get to the campground, you drop your money in the box, and then during the night you notice that there's a strange shift in the stars, and you're almost transported to another world. So very cool stuff. This chapter is filled with a lot of quick plot hooks. They're only about a paragraph long. There's not too much meat for them. Just a little something to get you thinking. I really liked the trucking and motorcycle sections, but I don't think I really use those in a game. It just didn't seem too applicable. So there's a lot of good information in here, but for this chapter specifically, I felt it was a kind of a mixed bag. The author was kind of struggling to add in horror elements to very mundane topics. For example, there was one point that automobile executives might be making demonic pacts, and that just seems stupid to me. But moving on, chapter 2 is kind of the mechanics section. There's new rules, including skill checks, equipment systems, and some new merits. And it's got some kind of mundane stuff in here, but there's also some interesting high-action cinematic rules. And there's also some stuff for supernatural things like cursed cars. While I don't think I'd really use these rules too much, there is some very good description in here. So it's kind of nice that while I wouldn't use the rules myself, there's good descriptions so that if I just want to get an idea of how do you present hitchhiking in my game, bam, it's right there. Following that, there's chapter 3, which starts off with definitely the highlight of the book. It's actually a 2-page spread of art and fiction, and it's absolutely great. I don't really want to give anything away, but it definitely made me smile and introduces a mood into the World of Darkness, which I've never even considered. If you see this book in the store, just flip open to that and give it a read. It's got this art with a horse-drawn carriage, and it's very good. And the rest of the chapter has pretty solid ideas. The ideas are longer than the ones found before. They usually give you about a page of information. And the basic format introduces topics such as Motel Hell, and that would be like the strange places the players might stay at. And it presents an example idea, such as the Goodnight Inn and its enigmatic caretaker, Rodney Hall. So there's some real nice plug-and-play features here. For example, if you just need a museum, flip open the book and grab Noah Crane and his Museum of Anatomical Anomalies. Out of this section, I really want to highlight the Gremlins, which are presented. These creatures are very interesting. They're mysterious, corporeal spirits, and they have this constant need to repair flesh, even if they aren't really broken, or sometimes they're even like meshing man and machine together. I think these could work really well as a foil to Prometheans, especially with their kind of mechanical obsession or combining flesh and metal. And it could be interesting and horrifying to maybe have the players run into a Promethean that's been endlessly tortured by these gremlins as they try to keep making improvements. But despite some of the good stuff, there's a few lackluster things. There's this one gas station attendant that was just boring and uninspiring. He didn't really need a page of notes. I also kind of wish that the snow witches presented were more than just like sirens in the snowdrift. Those could have really been expanded and made more interesting. But overall, there's some very good ideas. Now, the fourth and final chapter has some really interesting stuff in it. It begins with some general information on the challenges that mortals and supernaturals may experience on the road, like leaving areas or coming into new towns. It's actually got some really good material for players to flip through, which is surprising because the rest of the book seems like it's very storyteller-centric. It's also got a number of ready-made scenarios, and each of these is divided into a beginning, middle, and end. It's kind of an interesting format, and I haven't really seen it before. I'm not sure if it's been used in other World of Darkness supplements, but it's kind of interesting. Although I think that the transition between beginning, middle, and end seems to be largely arbitrary. The distinction's not too necessary. Out of these, the first scenario is probably the best. It's about a small country town that's isolated from the rest of the world. And of course, there's something mysterious and supernatural going on. And what this scenario does beautifully is explain the history and how things came to be in the situation that this town is in, but leaves the overall cause and truth unknown. And this means that anyone can actually read this scenario and play in a game using it, but they'll still be guessing at what's really going on behind the scenes. So this means that the scenario isn't entirely plug and play, but it lets people who read the source book play a game without spoiling all the material. And one thing I was thinking about while reading this is it actually kind of reminded me a lot of a secret frequency segment that Mark does. You get the basic information, but you don't really know what's going on, so each game that will present that information is going to be a little bit different. There's a few more scenarios in here as well. There's a doppelganger story, which I don't think I'll ever use. There's a shadow story, which could actually be kind of cool, but I wish that the creatures in it were more mysterious and less was revealed about them. But you could actually present it that way in your chronicle, so it's not too big of a flaw. There's a small town murder, which could be used in absolutely any chronicle, and it's very plug and play, so that's good. And there's also a road carnival. Now, the traveling carnival it's all right, but I was a little underwhelmed because I've already read the Old World of Darkness Midnight Circus and Ravenloft's Carnival Supplement, so this scenario didn't really seem like it did too much to break away from the pack. It's definitely more believable than these preceding products, but it felt like it was just kind of shoehorned in there to emulate Something Wicked This Way Comes. So the final verdict is, I'd say Midnight Roads is a pretty standard World of Darkness fare. It's got some good plot hooks for storytellers, and it's got some information for curious players, which is good. I'd probably give it 7 out of 10. Pretty average. Despite some specific topics for Chronicles on the Road, I think that some of the specific plot hooks presented here could be easily changed and presented in a Mortals game or Promethean or Changeling. In fact, this book is practically the sixth book in the Promethean line. It's got so much handy information for a nomadic motley on the road for their chronicle. There's also definitely some good ideas for werewolf and mage, but I don't think this book is too necessary for a vampire chronicle. They've already got their Nomads book, which covers travel. I'm not sure exactly how much benefit could be garnered from this. So, as for improvements to this product, I kind of hate to say it, but as I finished reading this and I was thinking about it, it really seemed like they could have cut some of the fat and made this into a PDF product. There's a lot of lackluster filler put in here and there, but there were some very good ideas. And maybe if they made it into a type product by slimming it down, they could release it as a PDF, and it might have just been better overall. I wasn't really impressed by the cheap paper either. I'm not sure if this is common among later World of Darkness source books, but I'd rather have White Wolf have a smaller selection of print books available, but have them be higher quality. rather than stretching their production thin. That's all I've really got to say about it. It's pretty good. You should check it out if you're interested in Chronicles on the Road, especially if you like Promethean. It's going to give you a lot of ideas that way. So, hope you guys enjoyed this, and have a good night.